Centre for Workforce Intelligence exists to help the health and social care sector to forward plan to provide secure workforce into the long-term future. We create intelligence that helps people to make better informed decisions around workforce planning.
The people who are providing services ultimately need to work with people like myself who receive services, and so it's incredibly important to me that we have a workforce who is equipped to deal with the span of issues that I might have going on in my life.
The workforce is vitally important in terms of the quality of care that the providers can offer, and they are all very committed to offering high quality, sustainable care. We know that people who receive social care want to receive it from people that they know and who know them and can provide personalised, tailored services.
I think we have to start engaging people who use services in defining exactly what type of services they want. And what I find is that service users want clarity and flexibility, and we need a workforce that's up to the challenge of delivering both those things.
The only valid measure of quality of any of it is the quality of what happens between that person and the person they are supporting, in whatever type or shape that is. And those people, understanding the nature of their role as a leader with a small L, in contributing to the social care effort, is probably, I think, the single most important.
I think currently we do have a crisis in social care recruitment, particularly in community services, and we have to think why that is. So, there are issues about status, the salaries that are connected to the perceived value of that work, and the career paths that are available and supported for people.
Recruitment and retention in social care is actually quite difficult, so we need to be starting to plan now so that the messages about how important social care is, the value of that option as a career, the progression that you can make, we need to be getting those messages across to people now so that we can actually grow the future generations of the workforce.
There are leadership challenges in local areas, local authorities, because less and less of what is being provided by them. Invariably it's contracted out to somebody else, and maybe 2 steps away from them where it's actually being delivered.
One of the challenges we have in the workforce is that we now have a plural economy of health and social care, but we have very different terms and conditions, and the public sector can offer more. So this makes it very difficult for the private sector to compete, and we need to have a level playing field with better commissioning that will enable a proper workforce strategy to be afforded and paid for in every bit of the sector.
I think the biggest challenge around leadership is how we equip managers today to transform services so that they're fit for the future. We've had an expectation, I think, that the task of managing is about managing services as they exist now. Everything we know about policy and development is that services need to change quite significantly in the future.
The leadership challenges are, I think, how together we create some of those spaces to have those strategic discussions and not trying to take too much baggage around what's happening now in terms of how things are arranged and organised and structured now. I think we have to kind of move to a completely blank piece of paper, and how we build up from looking at some of the challenges and issues and what people actually want, and using that as the kind of basis to think, well then, how is that commissioned? How do we support the workforce?
I mean, there's all sorts of ways of matching it and making it, but however you cut it and whatever way you do it, it's going to need a lot of people. So actually having some understanding of the type of workforce you need to do the job, how many and when, and what roles they occupy, and how flexible you can make them is highly important, I think.
So we know, for example, that currently we have 1.56 million workers in our sector. That's a workforce that's bigger than the NHS. But we also know that we're going to need at least 500,000 more workers by 2025. And that's quite a significant challenge, especially when you think that on any one day in our sector we have 60,000 vacancies. So we've got a huge amount of work to do. We know that the demand for home care is going to grow dramatically, and as such we need more people in the workforce. Some of our members are really planning very well ahead. Others are constrained by the current economic situation. If they are, for instance, providing services only commissioned by local authorities, they're having real difficulty planning.
Interestingly, I think if you think back 10 years or 20 years and look at how much services have changed during that period of time, you then can anticipate what might be required in 10 or 20 years ahead, and we can learn a lot by where we've come from, thinking about where we need to go to.
People don't just stay in one area of their life, they transition, and so as I transition I would like the workforce to transition as well. So in 2012 what I need now may be very different to what I need in 2020, and what I want is a workforce that moves with the times and actually understands that difference. And as we move towards a much more personalised service and as we have a much more consumer focus, I'd like to think that our workforce is able to increasingly treat me as a consumer, as a customer, and to actually move in the direction that I'm moving in rather than treat me as I am now in 20 years' time.